Joe claimed that Oxford debaters are actually nice people. You spent a week in the same place as I have. I can't believe you'll buy that trial. She brought us two slightly worse points. The idea first, that it was morally arbitrary where you were born, so of course we couldn't assign any significance to the duties people might owe you because of it. And secondly, the claim that a free market of nations and nationalities would in some mysterious way increase the general utility. Let's deal with these one by one. The logic from her first point goes, if X is morally arbitrary, X causes Y, then Y is morally arbitrary, and no moral duties can result from it. This is false. Here's a counterexample. If I have a daughter, it is morally arbitrary that she, rather than any number of different sperms that have met the egg, would be my daughter. It is luck that she, rather than anyone else, was born. It is also luck that she was born to me, rather than anybody else's daughter was born to me. I nonetheless owe special moral duties to that daughter because of that special relation that obtains between me and her. Even if it is the case that at some point in the causal history of the circumstance there was something morally arbitrary, it doesn't follow from that that no moral duties actually accrue. And we think there are very good reasons to believe that states have special duties to their own citizens. Firstly, because they are geographically closer, and of course you can access them. But also because states claim a right to command their citizens and not the citizens of other countries. States claim, no, a right to conscript their citizens, not the citizens of other countries. And when you claim moral duties over people, you claim they have a duty to obey you. You owe them things in return that you don't owe other such people, which is why you're not under an obligation to extend the benefits of citizenship to anyone regardless of where they are. No, thank you, because no state yet makes the insane step of claiming power over anyone wherever they are. And we said, but this is an artificial social institution, we heard from Joe. The word artificial is not a synonym for bad. All social institutions are to a large extent artificial. The question and the debate is whether this is a good one. Then she said, but this will be a free market of nationhood, to which we reply, the word free market here is being used as a substitute for argument. The fact that many disorganized actors without regulation, sometimes in very limited circumstances which economists can specify, result in an efficient outcome, is not a reason to believe that all sorts of nations acting in a disorganized way necessarily and obviously leads to an efficient outcome. There are good reasons to believe that market failure will occur here. Not least because if nations all have to compete for the same market, there's an incentive to move towards the center to capture market share. You offer, as it were, more bland and more homogenized products, as we see with satellite TV, when everybody shows The Simpsons, even though we'd rather like a little bit more variety. Furthermore, we think that there are significant collective action problems. No, which means, in essence, that even though you each individually select freely where you live, you ignore the deleterious effects of your choice upon other people, upon your countrymen whom you leave, and Johnny will expound on that, but moreover, upon the cultural communities that you join. And it's clear that immigration has effects on more than just you. In fact, their case requires it to have effects on more than just you, because they claim it would benefit more than just the immigrants. So, that case, conclusively, just doesn't work. What are we going to bring you today? I'm going to explain why governments do not have a moral duty to open our borders, and moreover, why they have a moral right not to do so. Johnny is going to explain why the rates at which culture and physical infrastructure can adapt mean that there is a pragmatic reason to limit the inflow of immigrants, and moreover, that the extraordinary damage that their policy will do to the poorest people in the poorest countries is a reason not to have it. Let's start with the first. We agree that it's good to help poor people in the most desperate parts of the world. We think giving them citizenship is often a morally praiseworthy act, but we don't think that it's morally obligatory. It falls into the category of things that would be good to do, but are not necessarily something that you would be morally obliged to do. And the reason for that is because there are many ways to help, and it is not clear that this is the best among many. Trading with these nations, giving aid to these nations, engaging in types of cooperation with these nations may all be ways which may be better to help. We put to you that it's a morally open choice which to have, and if there are multiple ways to help, you're not morally obliged to use any particular one, even if you're obliged to help overall. Furthermore, we think this particular way is something that we're not morally obliged to do, because the benefits of this way of helping, the way the benefits accrue, are disproportionate and unfair, and the spreading of burdens that their policy has is disproportionate and unfair. Even if we all have a duty to help people in the poor world, policy means that people who speak English very well, much like Tel Aviv, get an unfair advantage over people who are not the middle class in their countries, who are often quite poor. No, thank you. If we have a moral duty to people, regardless of where they are, why is there this mysterious fact that their policy miraculously helps people? The better they speak English and the more access they have to an airplane. That's not, no thank you, a morally fair way to extend aid, so you don't have a moral duty to help in that way. Moreover, it results in disproportionate burdens, because the countries where immigrants are most likely to go may not be those most capable of help. It may mean that a lot of the countries with the easiest land routes from poorer countries, which happen to have lots of poor neighbors, are flooded with the burden of caring for the world's poor, while countries that are landlocked, no, sorry, not landlocked, that are sea all around, right, like Greenland, that are very hard to get to and share a different language, right, are just don't share in this in the same way. We think that anything that shares out the moral duty in an unfair way is not something you're obliged to do. But moreover, we think that you have a moral right to refuse entry in this way. And that's because it's in many cases transcendentally important for people to have a right to self-define. To define what your identity is, you have to define your constitutive attachments. That means sometimes you have to say no. You have to set limits to where your culture starts and stops, so that you can say what you are. And moreover, we consider that states are not just arbitrary territories, but states are systems of cooperation. Because the Constitution, right, the laws about work, the level of welfare provision, all reflect a sort of social system of cooperation working towards a goal. And when you have a system of voluntary cooperation, those within it may choose whom they extend that cooperation to. They may extend it to their children and people born there, and may deny it elsewhere. In just the same way as if we were all a village and we had a rota for getting water from the well and sharing out that water, it wasn't the case that anybody could just barge in and demand a spot on the rota. If we're in a system of cooperation that's fair and we have a social contract, you can't sign it without my signature. And need for my signature means I can choose whom I cooperate with. So what have we brought you today? The fact that it's morally arbitrary does not mean, where you are born, does not mean that it's morally arbitrary to give special duties to citizens. The fact that there's a free market of ideas does not exclude the real fact of market failure. People have a right to self-identity. People have a right to say no. And in some cases, they have a duty to do so. Thank you.